Welcome to Rise Up Voices from the Front Lines, your window into relationships, identity, safety, emotional awareness, regulation and intelligence, unleashed potential, passion and purpose.
Welcome back to Rise Up Voices from the Front Lines, and this is a Trauma-Informed Leadership Series episode. I'm your host, Krista Fee, and today we step into a subject that sits at the very core of leadership: trust. In the last few episodes, we explored the metaphor of the lighthouse, leaders as steady beacons in the storms. In this episode, we take that beam of light and narrow it down to its essence. Because underneath every system, every movement, and every mission, there is a hidden economy. Titles, budgets, policies, influence, charisma, these may be the visible currencies of leadership, but underneath each and every one, there's only one currency that sustains everything else, and that's trust. Without trust, authority is hollow, compliance is brittle, and systems fracture under stress. With trust, even scarce resources multiply in effectiveness because people are willing to risk, to collaborate, and to give more than duty demands. As Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. That want to, that is the fruit of trust. So let's explore the economy of leadership. Think of leadership just like that, an economy. You can spend authority, you can spend position, you can spend money, but trust is the compound interest account. It multiplies itself over time. It strengthens team even when resources are scarce. It outlasts budget cuts, cultural storms, and organizational crisis. But the economy of trust is fragile. Unlike financial wealth, it can take years to build and seconds to lose. And once it's gone, every other currency, title, position, influence, all of that loses its value. The metaphor of the lighthouse applies here. If sailors believed that the beam only shone when the weather was calm, they would never rely on it. Trust is the same. It can't be conditional. It can't be based on mood, profit margins, or political advantages. It has to be constant, especially through the storms. So why does trust outweigh control? Let's get deeply honest. Control is really tempting. It's clean. It's immediate. You can demand compliance, set rules, and use consequences to keep people in line. But control is a blunt tool. It may secure obedience for a season, but it corrodes motivation over time. Decades of research in organizational psychology confirms that environments driven by surveillance, punishment, and rigid top-down control produce disengagement, resentment, and high attrition. People stop innovating. They stop taking risks. They stop caring. They give you the minimum required and nothing else. Control says you will do this because I can make you. Trust says you will do this because you believe that it matters. Systems built on control crack the moment that fear loosens its grip. Trust, on the other hand, creates resilience. When people believe in the mission and the leader, they'll walk through fire, not because they have to, but because they want to. One of my favorite historical examples comes from Abraham Lincoln. So many criticized him for being too lenient, too willing to bring dissenting voices into his administration. His cabinet was famously called his team of rivals because it included men who had run against him, doubted him, and even opposed him. Why would Lincoln surround himself with rivals? Because he understood trust differently. He knew that bringing in strong, even oppositional voices meant he could harness the full spectrum of talent and conviction in a divided nation. He didn't need or want compliance. He needed truth, dissent, and depth. Contrast that with authoritarian regimes that survive only through fear. They purge dissenters, silence critics, and consolidate loyalty. On the surface, they look strong, but their strength is brittle and fragile. The moment the grip of fear weakens, collapse comes quickly. Lincoln shows us something timeless. Control breeds silence, but trust breeds strength. And let's go another layer deeper and look through the trauma-informed lens at authority as a potential trigger. Many people who carry trauma histories, survivors of abuse, betrayal, or domination, experience authority as unsafe. Efforts at control can replicate old patterns of domination. When leaders default to coercion, followers with trauma histories may withdraw, resist, or shut down. Trust, on the other hand, signals safety. It says, I see you. I won't exploit you. I won't use your vulnerability against you. When leaders create environments of trust, the nervous system literally responds. Oxytocin and dopamine circuits activate. Cooperation rises. Creativity flourishes. But betrayal, on the other hand, activates pain centers in the brain as real as physical injury. Neuroscientists Eisenberger, Lieberman, and Williams showed that social rejection lights up the same neural pathways as actual physical pain. Trust is not only in your head, it's biology, it's infrastructure. It's the difference between a nervous system locked in survival and a nervous system open to connection. The anatomy of trust. Psychologists Mayer, Davis, and Schurman define trust as the willingness to be vulnerable to another based on the expectation they will act with integrity and care. This definition gives us 3 building blocks. Competence. Can this leader deliver? Do they actually know what they're doing? Integrity. Do their words align with their actions? Are they congruent in public and private? And third, benevolence. Do they care about others beyond self-interest? Each of these takes time to build. Each can be shattered in an instant. And let's make this real. A leader may be brilliant, which is competence, but if they cut corners or hide failures, integrity collapses. Or maybe they're competent and honest, but cold, using people as pawns. Benevolence collapses. Trust requires all 3: competence, integrity, and benevolence. Constancy, not conditionality. The lighthouse beam doesn't flicker on sunny days and vanish in storms. Neither should trust. And yet, many leaders treat trust as conditional. They offer transparency when it's easy, but withhold it when mistakes happen. They listen when feedback is flattering, but close it off when it stings. They apply standards firmly to others, but quietly exempt themselves. People notice. They may not call it out immediately, but they do notice. And the moment they begin to doubt whether the beam is constant, they stop steering by it. They start scanning the waters for other signals. They hedge their trust, and when that happens, the economy of leadership begins to collapse. Think of Captain Chesley Sullenberger, the pilot of U.S. Airways Flight 1549. When both engines failed shortly after takeoff, passengers faced unthinkable terror. Sully didn't sugarcoat. He didn't stall. He didn't offer false reassurance. Over the intercom, he said simply and steadily, "This is your captain. Brace for impact." His competence mattered, yes, but it was his calm, transparent constancy that steadied 155 lives in those final moments. The plane landed safely in the Hudson River, and every life was saved. Trust held even when everything else was collapsing. Trust builds slowly, but breaks quickly. And betrayal doesn't always come in the form of a grand scandal. Often it's death by 1,000 cuts. Promises made casually but not kept. Shifting standards applied unequally. Silence in the face of obvious harm. leaders hiding behind jargon instead of speaking plain truth. Each breach whispers to followers the lighthouse cannot be trusted. And over time, that whisper spreads and it becomes cultural. People stay, but they no longer give their full selves. They no longer risk. They no longer speak truth to power. They play safe, shallow games of self-protection, and the system loses its vitality. This is why betrayal is so devastating. It doesn't just break trust between two people. It infects the culture. It spreads cynicism. It seeds doubt in every corner of the organization. But here's the good news. Trust can be repaired. Not easily, not quickly, but it can. Repair requires 4 steps. Acknowledgement. Name the breach without evasion. Apology. Offer a sincere, specific, unqualified apology. Action. Change behavior in visible, verifiable ways. And accountability. Allow others to hold you answerable over time. This matters because many leaders get stuck in the first step. They offer vague half apologies. I'm sorry if you felt that way. But that's not repair. That's deflection. Real repair says, I broke trust. Here's how. Here's what I will do differently. Here's how you'll know it's real. In both marriages and organizations, research shows that authentic repair is one of the strongest predictors of resilience. Repair isn't weakness, it's leadership. This is the lighthouse work. Steadiness restored through humility. Here's the key to trust in crisis leadership. Think about the leaders who actually earned admiration during the COVID-19 pandemic. They weren't the ones who came to the forefront and said they had all the answers. Nobody had all the answers. They were the ones who said, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, and here's what we're doing, and here's why. Transparency, consistency, and acknowledgement of uncertainty built trust, even when decisions were unpopular. Meanwhile, leaders who downplayed, spun, or denied lost credibility quickly, and many never recovered it. Trust doesn't demand omniscience. It demands honesty. For me, this is deeply personal. As a trauma survivor, I know what betrayal feels like in the body. I know what it means to live inside systems where words don't match actions, where promises are made and broken, where power is used for exploitation instead of care. That's why I lead with such a fierce commitment to trust. It is not abstract, it's literal survival. And when I stand as a leader today, I carry the scars of betrayal and the conviction that no one under my leadership should ever have to guess whether the beam will hold steady. It doesn't mean I think I'm perfect. It means honesty. It means transparency. It means constancy, even when it costs me. So let's bring this all full circle. Leadership runs on many visible currencies, but trust is the real economy. Control can buy compliance, but only trust buys commitment. Control can build structures, but only trust builds resilience. Control can intimidate, but only trust inspires. So I challenge you, if you want to be a lighthouse in this storm-tossed world, you must be steady. You must be constant. You must show up with competence, integrity, and benevolence. Not sometimes, not when convenient, but always. Trust is your currency. Spend it wisely. Guard it fiercely. And when you break it, repair it humbly. Because without trust, leadership is nothing more than a title. But with it, leadership becomes a movement. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines. And next time, we'll explore counterfeit trust, how leaders weaponize loyalty, how systems counterfeit trust, and how trauma-informed leadership offers a different way forward. Until then, keep your beam steady. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it and join us in the Rise Up Trauma-Informed Leadership course and community. Or bring us to your organization, conference, or event, and we will create a custom training or keynote to meet your needs. Connect with me for a complimentary consultation anytime using the link in the show description. Ask me anything. I'm an open book, and I love making new connections. I'll see you next time on Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines.
Become a Rise Up Hero sponsor to provide mental wellness and crisis response resources for those who serve country and community. Join us in the Rise Up movement today.